Minister, I'm happy to support our regional group motion here today in relation to housing adaptation grants. And I think no harm just to run through the 3 grants that are available generally for community and for housing adaptation. The Housing Aid for Older People grant, essential to provide repairs to improve the condition of an older person's home, usually aged 66 years or over, who are living in poor housing conditions, so that they can continue to live there. Government provides a mobility aids grant scheme, and this is designed to address works in the home for mobility problems, such as the purchase, installation of grab rails, access shower, access ramps, stair lifts, etc. Again, the scheme is primarily for older people, but also for people with a disability. And then the Housing Adaptation Grant for older people, and again people with a disability, is designed where older people need to make physical adaptations to their home to accommodate injury, disability, trauma, and oftentimes post-medical procedure. It can also be requested to accommodate persons with sensory or intellectual disability. These schemes are means tested, as you know, Minister, and applications may need to be corroborated by an occupational therapist who can judge the levels of mobility and individual assistance required. So they are vital for so many people in our community, particularly for those as we age. So the whole idea of these adaptation schemes, as you know, is to ensure that people can remain in their homes as they get more infirm, and that they can continue to enjoy a quality of life in their own communities. And there's a significant social and economic dividend to the state in keeping people in their homes for as long as possible. They retain their family and their community relationships for longer as their age, and in general, they will also retain their mobility while they remain at home. They oftentimes have a wider circle of support in the community, and this is what we want all of us as we age. And that will be available to them as long as they remain in the community. Unfortunately, it doesn't always translate into going into managed accommodation or into state-supported care. And it is also a fact, Minister, that many older houses in the country may require adaptation to accommodate downstairs bedrooms and bathrooms, and oftentimes there is need to make wheelchair areas accessible in a home. So there is a very, very strong need for these grants. At present, the grant scheme is available up to a ceiling of €30,000, 20% of that funding coming from the local authority, the other 80% will be provided by the department. And the local authority, through approved contractors, is providing the scheme generally, and it's up to them to see that the works are managed, and they are responsible for assessing the claims and, where appropriate, instigating works. And this is where we have now run into a pretty significant problem, as you know. There's been a very marked increase in the costs now of construction nationally. And as you're well aware, Minister, a lot of public sector procurement is not being responded to at the moment, simply because contractors are not entering into fixed price agreements on works. So this is one part of the problem. The second part of the problem is that the ceilings of money available are not adequate anymore to deal with the adaptations that are required. So we know that people are living longer, Minister. We know that simple adaptations can do so much in houses, particularly to secure elderly people from trips and falls, which are in fact the most common cause of trauma suffered by our older age groups, and they often require significant hospitalisation and rehabilitation. And the increasing trend, unfortunately, in our ageing is reflected in the increased funding that has been directed by the Department over the last 10 years. And indeed, the level of funding has increased from 2014, a figure of 43 million, I think, up to last year, just over 81 million. So it has doubled in that time frame, but it reflects where the need is. But the individual grant ceilings have not changed, Minister, in 12 years, and this is something that we are significantly now in the group asking government to have a look at. They are not adequate to provide the adaptations that are required, given, as I said, the increase particularly in construction costs. And disability groups, I know, Minister, have engaged with you in the department and are suggesting that the ceiling must move to €60,000. And although the schemes are means tested, there are still a significant number of applications being given to each local authority, and an increasing number waiting ever longer to be dealt with. And as you know, Minister, it is also at the discretion of the local authority to see what funding they can provide. And as Deputy Kennedy has highlighted already, many local authorities are looking at the pot, and they know they are running out of money fast, and essentially they will not be able to cover 60, 70, 80% of the grant applications coming in. So my own opinion is the government needs to take a very strong look at the situation from a cost-benefit perspective, Minister. The delay in providing grants and thereby adapting houses means that people have no options other than to look for residential home care settings. And at present, Minister, as well you're aware, an average residential care cost in the country is anywhere now, depending where you live in the country, from €55,000 to €75,000 per annum. And even where the Fair Deal scheme is being utilised, there is still a significant cost on the Exchequer in supporting this type of activity. And I would say any cost-benefit analysis would detail to you that it's far better that we spend the money on adapting houses, and particularly local authority houses, where that housing stock may be used for further clients as time moves on. So, Minister, I think there's a significant problem, as we're all aware, in the construction cost. We have a significant problem in the funding envelope that's being provided, and we have a significant cost in terms of the local authorities having the availability to support grants adequately. So, in our motion, we are calling on the Government to ensure that adaptation grants are linked to the cost of the specific works as a percentage of the overall cost. And I think this is pragmatic. And grants must allow the discretion for people with disabilities to ensure that they meet the individual needs of the disabled persons to live independently in community. We aspire to live, Minister, in an equitable society, and for that we all aspire also to ensure that funding provisions are adequate to meet the needs of our most vulnerable. Clearly they are not at present, and this is what we are asking and calling on Government now to significantly review.